Good morning. Good morning, guys. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I see there's already quite a lot of us that are here. My name is Beauty Kotela. I am your host this morning for this very special Grace Talks. In fact, let me say this before I forget. If you have a young person in your life, a student, whether they're at high school or at university, I think you want them to listen to this Grace Talk. So for those of us who are here, slightly older people, if you are a mother, you've got young people in your life, or if you are a mentor, you've got young people in your life, whether you are an educator, you've got young people in your life, I think this is something that they must listen to, especially from teenagers upwards, because we are talking about the power of the mind, the power, the ability to use our brains to the maximum. They are young enough to be able to take some of the lessons that we're going to learn today and implement them. So I just thought, let me just dump that so that you can bring them. So if you have a young person in your life and they are on Facebook, tag them. If they are not on Facebook, go to YouTube quickly. It's called Building Great Lives. That's our YouTube page. Copy the link and send it to them. Tell them to join now. Because this is very, very, very important. I see Tandokazi is calling her little sister Inam. There you go. That's what I'm asking you to do, because it's very, very, very important what we are doing today. Like I said, my name is Beauty Kotela. I get the privilege and the blessing every Sunday morning almost to host these Grace Talks. All right. Grace Talks is a program of the Theatre of Grace. The Theatre of Grace is a movement. It's an organization. It's a community of women from South Africa, from Botswana, from Zambia, from Zimbabwe, from Swaziland, from Lesotho, basically SADC women. It's an online platform, mostly. English is leaving before we even start. Anyway, but Grace, Theatre of Grace is then a program of the Real Village, which is the non-profit Pan-Africanist organization based here in South Africa. So every week I get this privilege to host a number of people. I'm just introducing this now. At the beginning of this year, our mission at Theatre of Grace is living our best lives powered by the grace of God. Thank you, Kanye. Our mission at the Theatre of Grace is living our best lives powered by the grace of God. We believe that the grace of God is not just for the sins and for the forgiveness of our sins, but it is also the power that God has given us so that we can live the life that he's talking about in John 10:10, that I have come that they might have life and have it abundantly. At the beginning of this year, God has given us a charge, which is found in the book of Psalms chapter 1. Whatever he does shall prosper, or whatever she does shall prosper. So we are pursuing for the next while a series on prosperity, but holistic prosperity, guys. I often say this because once you say prosperity, people run away because there's this thing called the prosperity gospel, which is only about money, right? Wealth comes in all forms, not just financial forms. Yes, guys, we as Africans need to make as much money as possible, but if all we have is money, we are still poor. So we are wanting holistic prosperity. So we had health the other day from Dr. Abongile Kamata, and she just got us started. We were like, phew. And then last week we had Umfundisi, Pastor Poso. We spoke about spiritual prosperity. Today, I'm going to introduce our guest, who is going to talk about prosperity of the mind, this thing between the ears. But before I go to him, there's been a lot of people that were here. So let me just quickly take the greetings. Utandokazi took the front row seat. Molene Betinan, Molene Hanuva, good morning. Somebody is saying waiting. They are waiting in the WhatsApp group. And T has done what I'm saying, calling other people. Twaita, good morning, Twaita. Good morning, Nomsa, guys. Nomsa is joining us from Swaziland. Remember, Galok, you tell us where it is that you are joining us from, all right? So Nomsa, I know, because she's a member of the Theatre of Grace. She's from Swaziland, but you don't just greet. You say, hi from Nelspruit, hi from King. I need to know, all right? Morning, and Tokozo, thank you so much for joining us. Kuze, I think Kuze is in Zim. I might be wrong, but she's also a member. Angie's joining us from Johannesburg. Morning, Angie. Anati from Kimberley. Good morning. Kimberly's in the house. Angie, yes. Kanye joining us from Ntshalintshali, MDASB, I think. Good morning. Good morning, Zooks. I think it's Queenstown, guys. Don't make me guess, because you guys are not always where you're supposed to be. So don't make me guess. Good morning. Tell us where it is that you're joining us from. Somebody joining us in the Facebook group. Balapha Gqeberha. Good morning. Nwabisa joining us from Pretoria. Judy, thank you so much from East. We've got Judy from Gabs. Morning, Judy. Lebu joining us from Emonti. They say Kukompo, but anyway, good morning. Somebody's joining us from Steenbeck. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. That's the first thing that we do. We greet and we pin ourselves. Secondly, I have said it, let me say it again. If you are here, I know you will be blessed. You will be blessed. So tag somebody that is on Facebook with you so that they can also come and join us. And I was saying, this is the one where I really would like us to tag the young people in our lives, whether it's our sons and our daughters, our nieces, our nephews, our students, our mentees, the people we are having a class with. Some of us are teachers in various places in church or at work. Please tag those people, all right? And please let me also ask you, if you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube page, Building Great Lives, please go and do so and go and subscribe. Oh, Kuze, you see, I got this wrong. Kuze is joining us from Namibia. Thank you so much, guys. Okay, now we must start. Okay, I'm going to bring our guest in this morning, our guest for today. I'm going to bring him on this morning so that when I talk about him, he is in the presence, and then I'll let him run, and then I will just seize and let him come in. There we have our guest this morning. His name is Sipho, so I'm going to be calling him Sipho, but he is Dr. Sipho Ntshalintshali, a friend of mine that we met a long time ago. Before I continue to introduce you, Sipho, let me just welcome you to Grace Talks and ask you to greet the community.
Good morning, Beauty. It's quite a privilege for me to be here. And good morning to everyone who's joining us this morning. By God's grace, I hope you're all going to be blessed.
I know we will be. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Some of you might have seen Sipho. If you've watched Masekanye, when we were running that series, he was one of the doctors in some of the episodes there. So he is a medical doctor. I actually got this in front of me, Sipho, so that I do not forget. Sipho is a specialist. He's a physician. He's also a rheumatologist. Maybe as you start, Sipho, just tell us a little bit about what you do. What I remember is that we met Sipho at those of you who are from PE will know Algoa Church with his wife. Let me not mention the wife's name. I can't later because it means but they are both medical doctors. As a couple, we met them. They were still just coming on to ministry. If I'm correct, Sipho trained in UKZN, also trained in Cuba. You've also got a qualification from Stellenbosch. So I'd love for you, before we go deep into what you've got in store for us today, to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then about your qualifications and your training, perhaps even why you went into medicine. I saw the quote that you love of Albert Einstein, where it says, "Only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile." And I know I've seen you do. Oh, Sipho. Let me not talk about you, because I have a memory in mind. And let me share it. We were at Fear Plus Church. We saw, I remember Blake. Sorry, I'm going on now. I remember Blake, we were saying to them, this guys, this is doctors, these are doctors. He's like, they can't be doctors. And there was something at Fear, we were at Fear Plus Church for something, I think it was a district gathering, and somebody collapsed in the church. You might not remember that. But I saw how naturally you got up to attend to that. And I have seen you, not just a medical doctor, but someone who's doing this as like a ministry. This is me, this is who I am. And I'm reflecting now on our conversation of yesterday as well. So I'm so honored to have you here. And I thank God for doctors like yourselves who are here as a mission, qualified as well. Okay, so let's welcome you to Grace Talks. Let you just tell us a little bit about yourself first. You are also a father of boys, so you've got the same energy in your house. And let us tell you a little bit of yourself, and then I'll come back and just let you just jump in.
Okay. No, thanks, Beauty. I usually don't like to talk about my qualifications because people expect certain things once you tell them about your background, or some might even be intimidating, not want to ask questions. But anyway, I'm from Newcastle. That's where I was actually born. That's the northern parts of KwaZulu Natal. I grew up there, and it was, I think, from the age of 16 that when I finished my matric at that time, that I got a scholarship to study medicine in Cuba, and I came back and completed in UKZN. From there, I then went to PE to do my internship, and that's where I met Beauty. And after that, I went to Coxted, where I did my community service for a year. Thereafter, I went for my specialist training under UKZN to become an internal medicine specialist. After that, I've done a couple of other things. I've done an advanced course in allergy and immunology in the United States.
Look at a message from Blake. Hey, Quentin.
And after I did my immunology in the United States, I also did rheumatology in Stellenbosch under the Colleges of Medicine of South Africa. Also did an MPhil, and I did a master's in medicine with the UKZN. Looking forward to part-time starting a PhD at this stage with Stellenbosch University. So that's basically the background. At the moment, I'm working at Netcare Margate. That is the southern parts of KwaZulu-Natal as a physician and rheumatologist. I've been here for the past, it's going to be 5 months now that I came from Cape Town, and I've been here since then. So in a nutshell, that's who I am. And like you said, I am a father of 2 boys. And that's who I am.
Wow, thank you, Sipho. Your children are in trouble if abafunda it's like who here in this house. But anyway, my friend, I'm gonna let you just run now. We asked you today to speak to us about, I told you we are on this series of prosperity, holistic prosperity. You know, where Jeremiah 29 verse 11, where God says that I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you. He is not just talking about money. He wants us to prosper in our health. He wants us to prosper in our finances, yes, in our families, in our minds. He wants us to prosper in our service. So we thought today, let's bring you in. And you can talk to us. Open our minds to, excuse the pun, open our minds and inform us of what's important. One of the things that I often hear, they say about the mind, and I don't even know if it's true, but it's in the personal development space where they say most people only use 10% of their brain. And so I'm just going to let you run. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if Sipho says something to you, I also want to challenge you to have a pen and paper, because I think it's one of those that you're going to want to record, or it's one of those that you're going to want to listen to again. So I've got my notes ready, my note taker ready, because I believe we're going to be blessed. But if he says something to you that resonates with you, feel free to put it down in the comments. And if you have a question as well, write it down as we continue. We'll come back at the end and we'll attend to some of the questions. All right. So Sipho, over to you. I believe you wanted to do a slide share, or you wanted to start first. I'm going to hang around until you tell me, until I see that you're going, and then I'll disappear.
All right. I actually attempt to try and look into the issue of how can we best enhance the power of our minds. And one has learned some of these things over experience, and also have listened to other people who are more well vested in the topic than I am. So I will be sharing some of that with you, and hopefully I'll answer some of the questions that you have, because we really have an incredible mind. But if it's like somebody who's got a very beautiful car parked in the garage, but they don't know how to drive, and that is the problem that we are faced with. And unfortunately, as we will see as we continue to talk, the way that we are taught to utilize our minds, or even to teach our minds, they actually don't help us to enhance our minds as much as we can. So you can go ahead and put up the slideshow, please.
Okay. It's white.
Can you see it?
I can see it, yes.
Okay. So yeah, I've entitled this short slideshow "Mind Blowing." Speak of puns this morning, but we will see that it's actually once you can unlock the mind, you become unstoppable. You become unstoppable, and I hope some of us will be blown away by this. The question, like I said, the main question we're trying to answer is how to enhance the mind to its full potential. And we will find that the answer it's quite simple. It's by asking enough questions, and that's how you can actually enhance your mind. And basically, what subtopics that we'll be looking at, it's the background of how our mind works, and some of the way that our minds have been educated over time and how it should be educated, and the power of questioning. So basically, what does questioning things, how does it help your mind to become better in terms of its functioning? And we will quickly look at a stepwise approach to enhancing one's mind. Now that we will establish that actually our minds have been affected by the way that we've been taught, and then quickly look at a snapshot of what an enhanced mind looks like. So to start it off, we will well, I'm sure we are all aware that we are not similar to animals in so many different ways. And I'm sure also we are all aware that there are a lot of debates over the years trying to say that we come from animals. But if you just take a time, I mean, if you just take some time and observe, you will realize that there's a lot of differences between us and animals, including the monkeys that we think we actually resemble. And the difference mainly rests between an instincts that we only see in animals and creativity that we only possess. So you would find that you can get a monkey to ride a bicycle, which is something that we do. And that doesn't mean that a monkey now is intelligent. Monkeys can learn things that they are being taught and they can actually do them. Not just monkeys, any other type of animal. I'm sure you've seen in the circus that you will have an elephant that is walking, you will have a lot of animals doing tricks. It's because they've been taught to do that. So we are just the same. We can be taught things and we can do things. But then the mistake that we make is that we limit ourselves to that. We forget about the other facet of our minds, that we are able to create something that is not there, and ideas that did not exist before and bring them to the fore. And that is something that these animals can't do. If you look at birds, when birds are making, say, their nest, each and every bird of that kind is going to make a nest that is similar to the other bird. But it's only humans that are able to build houses that each and every house is different from the other house. And that's what makes us very much different from animals, that we are able to create things. And that is the part of our brain that has not been enhanced, in a sense that we've limited ourselves to the knowledge that we've been given and not actually gone to a point where we put ourselves in a position where we create new things. I'll talk more about this as we continue. Just to look at what Forbes magazine presented in 2018 in terms of how we think. They mentioned that in their survey, they found that people use about 10% of their thoughts in planning. That's basically planning for the future. And they use about 10% in organizing themselves in whatever that they do in their daily lives. And in reflecting in things that have happened in the past, we use about 15% of the time we are thinking about that. And in making decisions every day, it's about 20% of the time. And then other tasks that do not include really much thought at the present time, it's about 30%. What bothers me is the last one, which is in red, which is wondering about situations we have little control over, because this is basically time wasted and mind wasted. Because if you can't change the situation, you actually wasting 50% of your time, of your brain time, trying to look into something that won't take you anywhere. And as you can see, it's over 70,000 thoughts a day, and that's a lot. And if you are not using those thoughts for something that's constructive, it's actually won't take us anywhere. I want you to grab this snapshot because we're going to compare it in the end with what an enhanced mind would actually look like in terms of all these 6 activities of the mind. Now, I mentioned earlier that one of the challenges we've had over time is that the way we've been educated, it has sort of made us, in a way, to become like animals because we only are taught something that's already known and we are expected to mimic it. And we do not really get to use it to look at the other facet of creativity. Beauty mentioned earlier about the 10% that we use in our brains. This has been debated quite a bit in the scientific community to a point that this has been thought to be a myth. This was after some new brain scans were actually developed. There's a scan that we call it functional MRI or functional magnetic resonance imaging. So this scan, what it does is it actually looks at the brain in real time. So when you are thinking, when you are moving your arm, when you are playing, they can actually tell how much of the brain gets activated when you're doing those activities, to a point where the assumption has actually now moved from 10% to about 20%. But the question, I think, has not been answered fully, in a sense that this still is being debated, and still we know there's a lot of our brain matter that we have that we don't really see being active even on these scans. So we're still not using that part of our brains. And I think one of the reasons might be we haven't actually pushed our minds to a point where we can get the benefit of activating the entire brain and see how actually creative we can be at that point. But there is a reason that happens. This is probably one of the important slides when it comes to education. You know, when we're being educated from preschool to primary school, etc., you would find that the majority of what we learn is actually we are being taught to acquire knowledge of what is already known. And what does this mean? It means somebody in the past has learned or has been creative enough to find out something, and now you are being taught that skill, and you are supposed to possess that skill, and in the future you might be asked to actually reproduce the same skill that you've been taught. We'll have a quick look at that. And still, when you look at education, it does very little to allow us to be creative, to allow us to actually bring to the fore something that was not there. Well, what do I mean by this? If you look at I'll use once again the example of a car. If you look at a car, we've been having problems with carbon emissions because they cause global warming, etc. And every solution we've come up with, it has not been a new form of transportation. No, it's been the same car, but we try to decrease the amount of carbon emissions, and that's not really being creative. We're just maneuvering what's already known so that we can decrease the amount of carbon dioxide that's being produced by the cars. So that basically tells us that we are unable to, or our capacity of coming up with something completely new, it's been very, very, very deficient. Another good example, probably one can use, is this problem of COVID-19 we've been having. If you've been listening, the scientific community, when it comes to COVID, the answers we've been trying to come up with has always been based on what we've been taught. What do I mean by this? We've been looking for answers in vaccines, which is not bad, but it's an option that has already been there for other diseases. We are not coming with anything new. We've been looking for solutions in drugs, and drugs have been there for other conditions, but that basically means that we are unable to come up to face a problem and come up with a new solution that has never been there before. And that basically tells us that our capability of being creative has really been stunted over time. We can only refer to what we've been taught in the past or things that have worked in the past to use them for problems that are new. I mean, global warming has never been there before as a problem, but now we're sitting with this problem and we're trying to solve it using answers or answers that have been given to us to solve problems in the past. So a new problem requires a new answer, and we cannot give those answers. And then this is important not just for such problems, but in life in general. If you want to start a business, if you want to have a long relationship, if you wanna practice your religion, there are challenges that are new that come every time, and we want to have answers using answers from the past for a problem that has never existed. So this is one of the reasons why we are unable really to grow as a species. We are unable to grow as people because of the way that our minds have been shaped through education. Now, if you look at primary school, for example, primary school, you are taught how to write, how to read, how to count, and you are taught to look at things and memorize and recognize certain patterns. But all of this is good. It is good, not bad. But the problem is all of it, it's just what is already known, and you are being taught to acquire that information. It's good, we're going to use it, but we do not start at the very early age to teach people to be creative. And we will see how to teach people to be creative, because it should be part of education, because we are aware that as time goes on, we are going to face problems that are unique. Like the COVID-19 was unique. Nobody has ever faced it the way that it is today, and we didn't have the answer because we are unable to be creative. You look at higher primary, they then introduce even more complex now information. So they've given you the tools to acquire this information. Now you can read, now you can write. Then we're going to give you something a bit more complex. They teach you about history, science, mathematics, etc. But all of it, if you look at it, it's just pure memory. So we are really pushing to the limit one facet of our brain function, which is memory, and things that other people have come and actually just they're spoon feeding us. And if you look at exams, how exams are done at school, you are basically given a test whereby they ask you to reproduce what you've been given. So you just basically being tested your ability to remember, and your ability to remember then determines whether you pass or fail. But the problem is when you are faced with reality, you can't even use this science to answer that reality, because your brain is not used to being creative and even apply knowledge that has been given before to come up with new answers. It becomes a challenge. So it's still an issue that at this level of education, we are not being taught to actually be problem solvers. And I think you go to high school, it's even more complex, but the situation is the same. The situation is the same in the sense that all that you've been given is information. And in the end, you want that information back. And then you wonder then if you do very well in the exam, they will tell you, I know you're very intelligent or you're knowledgeable, but you ask yourself, is it really true that someone who's intelligent is someone who's got a higher brain function? It may be true that it's someone who's got a very good memory, but it's not someone who's got a very high brain function, because our brains are not just limited to memory. Our brains have got memory and also have got the other facet that I spoke about earlier, which is creativity. And if you look at the test that we use to test someone's brain, whether they've got a higher level of brain function compared to other people, what we call the IQ test. The IQ test basically tests your memory and tests your ability to recognize a pattern. And you can look at any IQ test, and that is exactly what it tests. So the test itself, it does not test the facet of creativity. You may know a lot, and you may be able to recognize certain things. But if you are unable to create something that is not there and come up with new knowledge, you actually not at the higher level of function than other people. And if you look at the Oxford Dictionary in terms of what intelligence and knowledge are, intelligence is defined as the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. So once again, we are looking at someone who's able to assimilate information which other people came up with and apply that, and we call that person intelligent. So if you're intelligent, you're basically a very good computer, which means you take what I put in and you can bring it out as much as I've given in. And knowledge basically, it means facts, information, skills acquired through experience and education. So these two terms are not really apart from each other, because an intelligent person is someone who's basically knowledgeable. And it does not mean that this person, with all that knowledge, when a new problem comes to the fore, they'll be able to be problem solvers. And if you look at what creative means, it's relating to or involving the use of imagination and original ideas to create something. Now, this is where we can say, you know what, this person really, their brain functions at another level. I'll give you an example. If you look at Albert Einstein by far is known as one of the people that were very intelligent. I would say that Einstein probably was more creative than intelligent, because Einstein, what he did was not to take knowledge from other people and tweak it to come up with something. No, he created something from scratch. He came with formulas that did not exist and he brought them to existence, and he made us understand certain physical phenomena that happen from day to day for us to know it better. He made us to understand what's happening in space. Today, as astronomers, they understand more what's happening in space because of some of the equations that Einstein came up with. So you can see that his brain functioning was way higher than people around him. And you also look at Isaac Newton. Newton came up with the laws of physics that as we know them, and he explained things that we see every day for us to enhance them and actually use those formulas to come up with everything that moves, because cars that move and everything that moves, they were first created from the laws of motion from Isaac Newton. So you see, those people came up with something that was not there. They gave us an understanding of something that, as much as it was there, they gave us original ideas. And now the question is, as a person who's just an original person, how then do you get to that level of imagination, to that level of creating original ideas? Because if you think about it, what makes a business to become successful is because you're able to be creative, you're able to come up with something new that your counterparts did not have. But if you did not train your mind to do that from primary school, secondary school, even part of university, all you did was just to acquire knowledge, you'll be in trouble. You'll be in trouble because you have all the knowledge, but you won't have anything new that other people are not offering. And that is basically what I'm trying to say here, that the way that education has shaped our minds, it has shaped our minds in such a way that we're very good in acquiring knowledge and reproducing it, but we are not very even as good as we should be when it comes to having original ideas. Now, you would remember that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And you see that creating, it's something that comes from God. So from the very beginning, he actually showed that he was the one who had the potential to create. And we do not find in the Bible any other person or creature that had an ability to create who's not attached to the owner of creation, who is God himself. What do I mean by this? In Genesis 1:27, you find that this verse which says, So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female, created he them. Now, this basically means if we were created in the image of God, in the image of the one who's got the potential to create, we inherited this ability to be creative from him. And that is why you don't find you don't find God creating animals in his image. You don't find him creating anything else in his image. It was only man. That when man was created in God's image. Because if you look at everything else, we are very similar to animals, for example, in the sense that we've got a brain, you've got a heart, you've got lungs, you've got everything. But the main difference that we have is what I referred to earlier. It's our brains, the way they function. That is the only difference we see between us and brains. To a point where today we've got people that get organs from animals. Just recently, there was a heart from a pig that was put into a person, and the person is alive today. And we get a whole lot. Our insulin. Insulin first, it came from modification of insulin from pigs. And that's what was given to people who are diabetic to treat their diabetes. Because the structure of us and animals is not different. But the main difference, as I said earlier, it lies within the functioning of our minds. And that functioning of our minds is because we were created in the image of God, He who can create. So in a way, we see that the education we've received, it has suppressed the one part that makes us to be as close the image to God as possible, which is creativity. And creativity, it's something that can be enhanced. It's something that we can teach our children and young people to be creative from a young age, and that will help them in the long run. Now, how to become creative? It starts here. It's the power of questioning. That question mark stands for questioning. Now, there are many questions that can be asked. It's a what, a why, a how, a where, when. All of these questions are things that we do not ask. Now, to get into the habit of asking a question is something that has to be taught. It's something that has to be taught because if you don't ask questions, you learn to just assimilate and reproduce. And by questions, what do I mean? I mean something like a question that has not been asked. If you look at say Isaac Newton came up with the second law of motion, whereby he said force was equal to mass times multiplied by acceleration. He looked at an apple that was falling from a tree. Now, if you look at that and you never thought about it, why does an apple fall from a tree? Why doesn't it fall upwards or sideways, but it always goes down? And then he thought, no man, there should be something that is pulling it from the ground. Now you can see that he was asking questions. People have been seeing apples falling all the time. They've been seeing things falling out all the time, but nobody took time to ask, okay, but why does it go down? And is there something that is pulling it down, or is it something within the apple or something with the ground? And you realize, no, there is a force, which is the force of gravity. Now, this, as you can see, you did not have to be a genius to realize that the apple is falling from a tree. It's something that everybody knew, but it took him to actually ask that question. And once you ask a question in your mind, you do not leave the mind a chance, but to try and look at all possible ways to answer that simple question. And that's where your mind starts growing. Your mind starts growing in a sense that it tries to look for answers that were not there before. This is something new that nobody has ever thought about, but now you are looking for answers, and the answers, they lie within creativity. Because now you would look at the possibilities that are there, and you will, in the end, try and find the answer. We only start to get a glimpse of what I'm talking about when we go to university, and not just any level of university, because the bachelor's degrees usually they are still about knowledge. They're still about you acquiring skill that you did not have before. It's only when it comes to when you're doing your masters and things like that where you come to have a research question, because a research question should be a question that has not been looked at before, or if it has been looked at, you're looking at it from a different angle. So you are looking at you trying to figure out a why on something, on something that is there. This is where we actually, for the first time during the whole lifetime of learning, that you start to get to exercise your mind to actually look at possibilities to answer a question. And this is actually something that it becomes, people that have done the masters before will tell you that it's doing research, it's something that is difficult. And the reason why it's difficult, because you've never done it before. You have to do it for the first time when you are older, and you're now teaching your mind a new skill of asking a question. And once you ask a question, you actually have to answer it in the end. And those who've done research before, they will tell you the most difficult part in doing research is getting the question right. So the ability to ask the right question, it's something that should be taught from a very young age. From a very young age, people have to get used to asking themselves questions and the right questions. And when they do that, they will be teaching their brains to actually look for answers, and their brains will actually expand. Now, when a person like that in the future is faced with the problem of COVID, you won't just have two answers to your COVID. It won't just be vaccine and tablets or treat or drugs, because you now have an ability to look outside the box. You have the ability to look for other possibilities that might be there that nobody else has ever looked at. But we're still sitting with the problem today because we've been very much stunted in the way that we think, in a sense that all that we possess in our minds is just knowledge. And that's where the problem is. Knowledge, don't get me wrong, it's very much useful. It's good to have knowledge, but it's not the only part of the only function of our brains that we should be exercising. We should be pushing our brains to the limit also on the other side, on the side of creativity, to a point that I feel that from very young age, from primary school, there should be a research project. And a research project should be a true research project whereby a person at that age is given a task to actually ask certain questions from that time. And your brain starts growing from that. It starts having new pathways of trying to solve problems. Now, I've alluded to some of these problems that have been there: the COVID-19, the global warming, the food and water crisis that we now faced with. And all of them, they require new answers. And new answers are not coming out. New answers are not coming out simply because we do not have people that have such minds that can look outside the ordinary, outside what history has taught them, outside what everything else is there, and come up with new answers for such problems. Now, I'm just going to quickly look at a stepwise approach then in trying to enhance this stunted mind to be able to at least try and be creative. This is a paper that came out on the Neuroscience Journal in 2019. So basically it was trying to look at how to hack the brain and which dimensions that can be enhanced to improve our cognitive function. Our cognitive function being the consciousness, that how can we improve the functioning of our awake brain. I won't go into details to bore you with the medical jargon. All that I want to show you, if you look at that circle, You've got the biochemical part. People have come up with a lot of drugs that they tell you, you know what, you take this drug or you take this remedy and your brain will be sharp. I remember as a young boy, there were friends of mine in school that suggested if you take, there are these small tablets, if you want to call them, they were called Sensen. The Sensen was used for odor. So if someone had a bad odor in their mouth, they would take Sensen. But then friends at school said, no, if you take Sensen, your brain will be sharp. You'll be able to remember all answers, etc. And we actually took those Sensen. All they did was to burn our mouths, and nothing actually happened. So there are a lot of things that have been suggested, but once again, this doesn't make you to be creative at all. There are a lot of other on the blue side. On the blue side, it tells you about interventions that physically have been done to try and enhance the mind. People have tried to electrically stimulate the mind. They've tried to apply magnets to the mind because there's electrical activity of the neurons in the mind. But all of that also is not good enough. Now, the green side is slightly different. The green side, it's important in that it establishes a good ground for your brain to be able to function optimally. So things like physical exercise, sleeping, learning a new language, etc. Those things are things that make your brain to be more plastic, to be able to accommodate to change, and also for you to be able to expand it should need be. So this was the study. This is what the study was looking at. In the end of that study, the conclusion actually was that this differs from person to person, and they couldn't really come with a tangible conclusion to say this is what you can do to enhance your brain. But you can try most of what other people are doing. But what I can tell you today, what you need to try, teach your mind to ask the right questions. And when you do so, you will actually be able to expand your mind. You will be able to expand in whatever field that you are. You will be the best in what you do. If you just think about it, if you're going looking for a job, if you look for a job and you've got the qualifications for the job, and somebody else shows up in the interviews, also has got the same qualification, what actually sets you apart is how much research you've had. Now I'm talking in the scientific community. And the reason why in the scientific community we don't look at how much experience you have, 5 years, then you are in. It doesn't work like that. It's how much research you've done in your field of study, because it tells them the ability you have to ask good questions. And why then is it important? It's important because should you have any challenges here, once we've hired you, you will be able to take those questions on, and you'll be able to come up with answers to a question that has never been asked before. So that's the importance of really starting at an early age to teach young people to start doing research. Research can be done at different levels. It doesn't have to be at the university level where you are in a laboratory, etc. It's simple. It can be done about any subject. Even if you think religion, you can do research within religion. It's quite interesting. So there's quite a lot that can be done with just being able to ask the right question. Now, I told you earlier to look at the snapshot that I gave you of how our mind works. An enhanced mind would look more or less like this. So planning will be the most important thing. Why? Remember that when we plan, we are talking about something that's going to happen in the future, and it hasn't happened yet. And when you plan, you look at all different possibilities that could affect that plan. For example, if you're planning a trip to go from Durban to Joburg, say in June, you have to think, maybe there's going to be another wave. So if there's another COVID wave in June, what would be the alternative? Then you start thinking about that alternative. But in a way, it teaches you to ask questions, to ask the right questions. And in a way, this makes it possible for you not to be stuck in the future. And that is proper planning. That is proper planning. Not just to have a list of things that you're going to do. Because if you've got a list of things that you're going to do, what if there's a certain challenge that comes through? You won't be able to overcome it. Now, the other parts of thinking of in an enhanced mind will then include being organized, reflecting, making decisions, and performing the day-to-day activities. But you try to limit as much as possible wasting brain power on situations that you have little control over. You have to go over that and actually come up with solutions, which you will find through planning. So planning is a very important part of this. Now, talking about future planning, I think Beauty referred to this. I'm almost coming to an end. She spoke about this. Uguti, God, He knows the plans and the thoughts that He has towards us. What is interesting in this verse is that He says it's to give you an expected end. Now, an expected end, that is referring us to the future. It's referring us to the future, which means it's important as much as God, His expectations for us are not the here and the now, but are there. We will run this race and a lot is going to happen, but if you are not prepared and not planned for the end, then you're in trouble. Whatever that you do today, it should have an impact on what your end should be. And that is proper planning. That's proper planning. What do I mean by this? We know that one day we're all going to die. So if today you haven't prepared and planned for when that death happens, then you're in trouble. So we should have planned. If it happens today, we should have planned. What if I die today? Where do I stand with God? Where do I stand with family? Where do I stand with humanity, etc.? So asking the right questions once again, even if it's religion, even if it's job related, it's school related, etc., it will help you in the long run to ask the right questions. So we can only create our futures through creative thinking. Now, these are the areas of our lives that would drastically improve if we had ability to ask the right questions. We'll have successful businesses, successful marriages, successful friendships, even a successful religion, because you had the potential to actually foresee things that might happen, and because you ask the right questions. I've referred to this. And lastly, God wants us really to prosper. He wants us to prosper in every way. And the only way that we can really try or start to do that to have that prosperity, is by enhancing our minds and teaching ourselves to ask the right questions. I thank you.
Yo, oh my goodness. You know, I think Ubulela said something about we are sitting in a lecture room and Gunasha says we are on another level and Aspatelang. And that speaks of the grace of God. My mind is all over. It's like I'm sitting here and I'm processing, I'm thinking about myself personally and how this applies to me as a person. I'm thinking about how this applies to me as a mother who is raising children who are asking all sorts of questions. And sometimes as parents, we just get irritated, like stop asking all these questions, because perhaps we are tempted to give answers. And I'd like to get your views on that, Sipho. The same thing happens in school. And I'm sitting here as somebody who has the privilege of being an educator, where in fact, we moved our son from one school to another, where in the one school, it was just too tight. The rules were just too fixed. The corners were just too fixed that if you move this way, you hit the wall. If you move this way, you hit the wall. There's no room to move. So we moved into another school where there's quite a bit of room. Of course, there are boundaries, but there was a lot of room to move. So I would like to share your views on, you've mentioned it already, but on children and us now, because here we are sitting, yes, as women, as men and women. A lot of us are parents as well. And yes, we can talk about the education system and how it stunts the creativity and therefore the development of these neural pathways for our children. But we also have the opportunity in our homes to educate, and how we in our homes can actually be stunting that by not even opening up to the questions that they ask. If I say clean the house and clean it this way, I remember as a math teacher, we used to give a step-by-step solution to a problem. Step one, write it, put the brackets, but do it like this, Johnny. If you don't do it like this, so it's my mind is all over. So I want you to speak to that. But the other one that I thought to myself, former President Thabo Mbeki was famous for the statement, African solutions to African problems. And the huge, we are facing a lot of problems as Africans, and one of them is this problem that we talk about, the three braided cord of poverty, inequality. I can't remember what the third one is, but we have a poverty problem, and I think almost not everybody, but most of us as Africans, we have handed the solution to that problem to somebody else. Government must think of how we are to get out of the poverty problem. Let me just let you speak to the one about parenting, and because now I'm just piling everything that's in my mind. Let me let you go.
You see, the one of children, I really like it. It's if you look at it, we are very much at fault because, as you said, when a child comes with a question to you, as a parent, you would have to gauge this. Is it a question, for example, mommy, why does this phenomenon happen? If that is the case, what your duty is you go find out and tell me when you come back. Because the brain already, it's telling you from the very time that the baby is born, it's got that ability to ask questions. Yeah. It wants to learn to ask questions and have answers to. But how we suppress it is you suppress it this way. You don't allow the child to find out some of these answers. Of course, there are dangerous things that you would immediately tell the child what it is and don't touch that, etc. But certain things, let them go. Let them go and find out and come inform you later. And then that is how you let them grow. That's how you let them grow, and that's how you teach them that it's good to ask questions and you get answers. You actually might learn something from your child. Yeah. That actually they have a different, they will give you a different way of approaching it. You were referring to a math teacher. I remember we always had this problem of when it came especially to geometry. You've got this circle and a triangle, etc. And then they say, okay, which theorem you used to come to this answer? You're like, no, I didn't use any theorem, but I came to the same answer that you're coming up.
And the teacher gets offended.
Yes, they get offended. That's no. You must tell us this is the step and this is the theorem you use. Yeah. And that is where the problem is, because we are really being put into a corner where we are saying, listen, don't think. Yeah. Apply what I've taught you. Yeah. And that's it's a problem from when school starts to when it ends. And you've got a bunch of people who can't think, unfortunately.
I was going to say the cycle has become vicious now, Sipho, because what we used to, I remember students used to say to me, man, study notes, just give us notes. Give us notes, we're gonna copy down the notes. Give us notes. So if I don't have notes, guys, for you today. I'm just gonna stand here and I'm gonna teach, and I want you to put the pens down. I want you to process what I'm saying, and then you go and make yourself notes from what I'm saying, because then you get to engage with what I'm saying. They get very uncomfortable because they want notes. But we now have, and this goes to my second question, we now have a situation where 80, 70, 60% of Africans are sitting with serious problems and they're waiting for somebody to give us notes. I'm hungry. I'm a father. I'm unemployed. I'm a mother. I'm unemployed. And I'm looking at the mouths of my children who are dry. They have not eaten. I'm waiting for someone to give me notes as to how to feed my children. Now, Now we can trace it back, Sipho, and I'm going all over the show, and you and I have had this. We can go here. We can trace it back though. The dangers of apartheid and calling us monkeys. I don't want to be political, because there we were told you do not have. We were locked in prison physically, but our brains were also locked there to the place only of instinct. The dangers of calling us monkeys, we were told not to think. Monkey see, monkey do.
Monkey do.
And now we're having this thing, and I mean, I'm going all over the show, and we must talk before we close. Time is almost already leaving us. We must talk before we close. The value of, I'm loath to say religion, but let me say religion. The knowledge of God. Us now, as the people that know God, the Creator God, as the ones that have a relationship with the Creator God, how we ought to be different. Because not only do we have a brain, but we know the one who made the brain and what he has given us, and our value and our role in solving our own problems and helping with the solution of the problem of the world. Like I said, I'm all over the show. I'm just pouring my brain. You deal with it.
Well, what I can say to that, it's very sad to see governments only giving answers which are not really answers. What do I mean by this? People are hungry and then they give them 350 rand. You see, you give someone 350 rand, they now know that when I've got a problem, the solution is money.
Yeah.
And that's not money. We all have been given the same capacity to solve our problems using our minds. Yeah. And we now don't go to our minds at all. We want the fish, but we do not want to know how to catch it. Yeah. And there are many ways of catching a fish. You can jump in and hold it. You can put a net. There are many ways, but we don't want to think like that. And that's unfortunately killing our society throughout Africa, because we now have become a continent of handouts. We want handouts, and that is how we survive as a people. And that is very sad. That is very sad. When there were even better trades before, that people did not have to go to school, but they could make a living. And we have abandoned those. We've adopted the new society, which requires us to be skilled in a way to make a living, and we can't think beyond that. That's where our thinking ends. I do feel though that an intervention of showing people that, listen, if you did not go to university, you did not go to school at all, your mental capacity is just as good as that person, and actually might be better in instances. Yeah. And you might have solutions to problems of poverty that other people that are educated may not have. So it's something that should be done, and people should know the worth of their minds, the value of how they can really exercise their mind to a point where they can take themselves out of any problem.
Yeah. And I think this is where I think religion comes in, because all of us, and this is the fairness of God, we were created in the image of God. All of us. Whether you went further to study, I'm reminded of my father. My father used to make couches and cupboards and build houses. The guy stopped at standard 2, my friend. He does not have a construction career. And he used to pride himself, say, none of the houses that I built have fallen. He's true. He never went to school. So all of us have got the brain, and all of us have got the creative ability. But we're now living in there's a lot that happened to us, of course, but sometimes I'm a fan of formal education, because I do believe that it plays a role even in mental development. But it's not the only way to learn. It's not the only way to learn. And it doesn't say we have more brains if you've got a PhD and the one who doesn't even have matric. We all have the brain. I think it is in the use of our brain. I love what Andiswa is saying here. And she's doing a lot of community work. She's a clinical psychologist, and I hope I got that right. Empower, and motivate our society to be creative. I think that's what she's saying there. Because in giving solution, in solving even the small problems, I love what you said, that people just want the fish. They don't want to know how the fish can be caught. But in not learning how the fish can be caught, we then limit ourselves, because government can only give us 350 rand worth of fish, because that's what they can afford to give me. But if I know how to catch fish, I'm not limited as to how many fish I can be able to create. So speak to us then as we close this about, and we just bring it back to the one who created us. We came out of his hand. In fact, TD about the value of religion, the impact of a relationship with God, the impact of knowing God, the creator God, and us coming from him. That impact on the people, on our creativity, on our brain, on our ability to solve our own problems. TD I love in the book Saw, he makes the statement, I hope the alarm is not coming from my house. He makes the statement that God does not create furniture. He makes trees. God made trees. So a lot of us, he says, a lot of us are praying, asking God for furniture, and God does not make furniture. But he made you with a brain, and he made trees. It is your job, and he has given you the capacity to take a tree and make it into something else. Okay, I'm gonna just you keep going. I must go and disarm the house.
Okay.
This guy has pressed something.
I think. Look, the one value that I would give to religion, what it does, it gives us the ability to recognize that everything we are comes from God, and that if we are not being creative, actually we're denying him as our creator. Because if he made us in his image, he wanted us to be like him, and every day we are moving further and further from being creative. We actually don't want to be like him. We don't want to be like him. We just want to be like I said earlier, that the rest of the animals, you can teach them to do almost anything. I saw a monkey riding a bike the other day, and it's not because it's intelligent, but it's because it has been taught, and we can do that. But the moment you become creative, you're really showing that you are more and more like God. And I do believe that if we do ask God to actually help you to be like him, you will be like him. So religion is not just all about, praying for your problems, etc. But religion also plays a role whereby you want to be more like your maker. You would want to be more like your maker. And we were actually showing that we're more like him when we created. Because it's really by far the only thing that shows that we came from him. We came from him because we are like him.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to read this comment from Ugcinashe and then we wrap it up. And I'm going to ask you to pray for us as we close. But one of the things that you've mentioned it, but I think perhaps let's just reiterate that as a part of your concluding remarks, to reiterate the whole issue now of looking after the machine. Okay, there's another comment that's there. Let me take the comments and then I'll come back, because otherwise I'm going to have them locked up. Ugcinashe says self-doubt, where we only trust that what we do, if it is based on something someone successful has already done. I have in mind here the what do they call it when you're doing a research? The first part, the theoretical, what do they call it?
The hypothesis.
No, not even that. My mind. the alarm. The literature review.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you do that and you do that and you do that. When you write something and you have not referenced it, that's like, who said this? But can't I come up with something from my own mind? That's academia for you. So she says self-doubt is busted because creativity cannot be restricted to what someone else has already done. I absolutely agree. She's love for self-love, and so these things are important to her. We are uniquely inspired every day, but we often abort our ideas before they are even born. You're right. You know that whole statement of Marianne Williamson, who are we to think that who are you not to be? Dalunyigi says, I'm observing this creativity in the Western Cape, where thinking outside the box in business and culture also allows them to take calculated risks in order to survive in the most rural areas of our country. Absolutely. And true. Sadly, by our white folks, and it's true. A friend of ours, a friend of my husband's, really, Andrew. I was interviewing him for my MBA research. He says, Beauty, the difference between our homes and your homes, and I'm not saying this as a privileged thing, is that one, questions were allowed. Questions were allowed. We could ask the questions. Whereas Nina, questions culturally are not allowed. I mean, you would remember this. If you ask questions. And, you know, because we wanted to know. That's number one. Number two, he says, Tina, even at the dinner table, I'm speaking to what Mdalunyiki is saying, even at the dinner table, the conversations at the dinner table, without the children actually even being involved, they pick up, they want to go and explore, etc., etc. So I'm saying, and that is in the home, in the realm of the home, where we can sit in the home and do this. Okay. Yeah. So I've lost my train of thought now. Oh, I was saying in your concluding remarks, because we've got the brain and we've now spoken about how we can actually enhance it. I would want you to, because I know you are also very passionate about this. We mentioned it in that wheel that you were talking about, but perhaps as part of your concluding remarks, the importance now of physically looking after the brain. In other words, the health implications on because you are not going to be creative if you are drinking alcohol, because the alcohol does this to the brain. You are not going to be creative if you are smoking and taking drugs, if you are not eating well, if you are not taking water, if you're not so I know this is also your passion about that. As we are closing, just to go to that place now where we say we've got this asset. It's powerful, but it gets stunted, its creativity, by the things we've spoken about. But also there are many things that we do that actually, I don't know what English is leaving now. You would know this.
Yeah, look, we are going to, a good illustration once again would be, I've got an M5 BMW, one of the fastest cars there is, and my tires are flat. How can you show that your engine is among the best there is if your tires are flat? You'll be going at 20 kilometers an hour, and a Toyota Tires will pass by at 140 because they've got good tires. So what am I trying to say? You won't be able to really enhance your brain to be the best it can be if you haven't created the conditions for it to do so. Wow. And those basically are the same things that we always talk about. It's nutrition. The way that you eat, it can affect the way that you think. It's exercise. Exercise is very important in the brain. Do you know that it produces a hormone that we call endorphins? And endorphins are like morphine, which gives you a sort of a happy drug without having taken it. And it's a normal occurring hormone in the brain. So we are not even enhancing that if we are not exercising. So that's very important. And we talk about another thing, which is rest. Rest, which is mainly sleeping part of it. The sleeping part of it produces another hormone that we call melatonin. And melatonin rejuvenates the body, especially the brain. So what it does in the brain is, for us to be always sharp, we need neurotransmitters. So one neuron must talk to another, and they can't talk to another. They use chemicals, and these are the neurotransmitters. So you might have the neurons, but without the chemicals, you can't. And the chemicals can only be produced when we are sleeping, resting. They get built up. And melatonin has got a very important function, which is it's an antioxidant. So it makes sure that neurons don't die, and there's a lot of neurotransmitters being produced. So sleeping, it's important. If you sleep enough, your mind will be sharper, and you'll be able to actually enhance it further. Things like breathing clean air. If you're in an area that's got smog and it's not a clean air, it's going to affect the way that metabolism happens in your body. So it's things like that which are natural things that we have to do each and every day to make sure that we are healthy. They will keep our minds sharper. So if you just remember New Start, nutrition, exercise, water, rest, temperance, clean air, etc. Those things, they actually work. They actually work even for your brain, for you to be able to think.
Wow. You know, I've needed this. If anybody is not, I know I'm not the only one blessed, but if nobody gets blessed here, it's me. It's one that I'm going to listen to. There's Tandoka says my journal iyagcwala. This is nutrition for the brain. So thank you, ma'am. Yes, thank you, Sipho. I think let me just thank you because we ran out of time. Let me just. This is one that I want to listen to. This is one to share, guys, with somebody. Because it's very, very important. I strongly, strongly, strongly believe that we are all of us are sitting on gold mines. The gold mine starts in this little space between our ears. And God has given us that space. In his fairness, in his grace, he has given us the space. But we've got to challenge ourselves to use it. And it does get uncomfortable because you go to places that are unfamiliar, even for you. And if it is children that you allow, they go to places that are unfamiliar. So it does get restless and uncomfortable. But that is where we grow. We don't grow in our places of comfort. We grow when we just get out of the comfort zone. And I think we would solve so many problems. We would solve so many problems. We would be far better as a people. And I'm an African, and we make no secret of the fact that in this talks, we are Pan-African. So we're looking for something that can help anybody, but definitely for us as Africans. It's time to stop and use this. Yes, get help from other places, but we've got enough. Everything that we need to start solving our problems, we have it within ourselves, and that's the brain. We can then go and ask somebody for something, but if we know what we need, we know where to go. And ask. Whereas now people just come and dump stuff here, and we take it because we have not even thought about what it is that we ourselves actually need. Sorry, I'm going on and on and on and on. Sorry. Thank you, Sipho. Thank you so much, my friend.
That's been a pleasure.
Yeah. And now you can go and do your rounds, guys. Sipho is at work, as you can see. So he's sitting here, but he's taking time. I know how busy you are. But I also know how passionate you are about humanity, but about Africa, about community. And I thank you for your contribution to this community at the Theatre of Grace. May God bless you, bless your family, and bless your kids. And of course, continue to turn whatever it is that you're touching. May he continue to turn it to gold. So thank you so much. I'm going to ask you to pray for us. We do this. We ask our guests to pray for us as a way for them to leave a blessing here in this house of ours before they go. Thank you so much.
Okay, shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to be able to reflect about some of the things that can make us to be better people, that can make us to be examples to others and be able to solve some of the problems as we are still in this world. My special prayer is for everyone that is currently online, and those that will be watching this video later, that they might not see me, but they may see how amazing you are in the way you created us, in a way that we may have all solutions for our problems within us. In Jesus' name we pray that you continue to enhance our minds. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sipho. Guys, before we go, there's another word, somebody saying thank you. Remember, sharing is caring. So, right? You've listened to this now. You know that there's someone who will be blessed. Tag them if you're on Facebook. And remember also to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Building Great Lives, via YouTube. Share this, copy this, and paste it and send it to somebody. It's a beautiful way to start the week. And this is the beauty about God dividing time. Every 7 days. He does it every day, but once every 7 days, it gives a new portion of time called a week. How about we start this week with prospering minds, or with commitment towards prospering our own minds and those of the ones in our lives, from our children to the ones that we serve. Thank you so much. God bless you. Everybody have a blessed week.